Hi, I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com. With us, the man who saw tomorrow and the next day and the next day and the next day. I'm talking about the top trends researcher in the world, Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal. Gerald Celente, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.
Oh, thanks so much for having me on. I really appreciate all that you do to inform the people of the real events that are going on and not the junk that they're spewing out. So thank you for all that you do.
Well, you're very kind to say that, but I tell you, I'm stunned at how the media, the mainstream media, is still pretending somehow that we have some sort of recovery after 10 years of juicing the markets. And they think that somehow that announcing rate cuts and more QE, whoop, what nirvana, that's going to do it. Are we heading in for nirvana, or are we heading to perdition?
Well, our forecast this past March was that the Federal Reserve would lower interest rates at least 4 times before the 2020 election. And now, of course, they're meeting, and the speculation is, will they lower them now or wait till July? And about 85% of the futures market says they'll lower them in July. I'm in the camp that they're going to keep lowering them. They have to. You look at the data coming out. They just had an Empire survey came out yesterday.
Yeah, terrible.
And the Empire State Manufacturing Index plummeted 26.4 points to negative 8.6 in June. This is June, right? That's a record decline. You go around the world, Greg, and look at the data. In Europe, you're looking now at Germany, the strongest market in the Eurozone, and they're only looking for 0.6% growth this year. That's virtually no growth at all. And as we were talking before off air, we were talking about Mario Draghi, the former Goldman Sachs guy, and that was head of the European division that they put up there as the front man for the European Central Bank. You know, what are they going to do? He said, we're going to bring out more tools in our toolbox. And that's a quote, to do what we can to juice the markets up. And as you noted, they have negative interest rates already. So how negative do you go? So they've already spent almost $3 trillion in quantitative easing. Again, something that they never taught us in Economics 101 or graduate school. They made this crap up. Quantitative easing? You mean buying corporate bonds and government bonds and shoveling money into your bankster buddies. And by the way, according to Bloomberg, they say that the Federal Reserve in the United States during the Great Recession and forward dumped in about $9 trillion. No, not according to the Levy Institute. That's at Bard College. They dumped in over $29 trillion. That's right, $29 trillion to their buddies. So what's the deal? They're going to keep lowering interest rates. It's monetary methadone. All these people are addicts. Morons and imbeciles call them investors. They're addicts. They're gamblers. They can't stop. And all they want is that drug, that monetary methadone. So they're going to just keep filling it in until they OD. When will they OD? I would have thought it would have happened years ago. But they keep coming up with new schemes to keep the addict alive. It went from heroin to opiates. And it goes from quantitative easing to lower interest rates and whatever else they make up. What do they make up? Take a trip to China. Oh, look, we're going to lower that reserve ratio requirement. In other words, the banks don't have to have any money. They can loan what they want. I got another idea. We'll go deeper in debt and build more infrastructure and more ghost cities. So what I'm saying is you don't know when it's going to collapse, but our forecast is we're not going to go into a recession this year. We'll begin to go into it in 2020, and the greatest recession/depression will happen by the end of 2020.
Well, so you think Trump, the Trump administration makes it past the November election before the crap hits the fan, really hits the fan?
Yes, I think they will do everything they can. As you know, they've only the overnight rate is only 2.25 to 2.50, but that's 9 increases. They can't increase interest rates in Japan; they're negative. You can't increase them in Europe, and you're going around the world, the emerging markets, one after another, are cutting interest rates. So the United States could get away with it with the dollar because all the other ones are going down. So it's not that the dollar is strong, it's that the other ones are so weak. Here, what do we have? A $22 trillion deficit. Well, of course, when you put in all the dough, it's about 220 trillion, but forgetting that part of it. Let's go to China. Go back to the late 1990s. China's total debt was around $900 billion. Today, try over 40 trillion.
Yep.
And their yuan is going down. No, Trump, they're not doing it purposely so they could sell more product. They're devaluing it because they're printing up more fake money, trying to keep the Ponzi scheme going. And by the way, as an Italian, I resent the name Ponzi scheme. They should call it something else. And the Chinese don't know a Ponzi from anybody, you know. But anyway, so they're going to keep it going. Now remember, Trump is in the real estate business. He knows the higher interest rate goes, the lower real estate goes. He knows the importance of low interest rates. And anybody that thinks the president doesn't have any power over the Fed, you better grow up or read a book. Because if you went and go back to Nixon, he brought in Burns and told him, I don't want you to raise interest rates. And that's when inflation was going up. And then you read Paul Volcker's latest book, and he was the Federal Reserve Chairman under Reagan, and he tells the story of how he was brought into the White House. And that James Baker sat him down next to Reagan in the library. And he said to him, the president doesn't want you to raise interest rates before the election. And then you take a trip around the world. Oh, that guy over there, Modi, he fired his central bankster, brought in another one. So the presidents and the leaders have power over them because here's the reality. Anybody that's been into the circle, and I used to started off my career as the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate. The only way you move up in these positions is you suck your way up. These aren't brave people. So Powell sucked his way up. They sucked their way up, so they know how to follow orders. There's not a pair of cojones among them that are bigger than a mothballs.
And let me get in here with you. You think that this is actually it's brilliant in simplicity. And I don't mean that you're a simplistic guy, just as brilliant that somebody like me can understand it. You could say this. That they're so weak abroad that they're going to be cut. The U.S. dollar will stay strong. That's the big linchpin. If the dollar crashes, then everything's gone. But you're saying that because everything else is so weak, they can get away with it, at least for a while.
Exactly. You know, Greg, you're a nice guy. I've been on your show for many, many years. I got a 10-year bond for you to buy. It's a German bond, or it's a Japanese one. Now it's even a French one. But you're such a great guy. After 10 years, when you cash it in, because I like you so much, I'm going to give you less than what you paid for it. We're going to call it a negative yield. You can't make this crap up. They're actually doing that. People aren't buying them. The governments are buying them. They're buying them behind the scene to prop it up. Japan's been buying up the stocks over there to prop up the market. There's a global slowdown. And here's the thing. There's always the wild cards. And that's why when people say I'm a futurist, I'm not a futurist. Nobody can predict the future. There are too many wild cards, whether man-made or made by Mother Nature. But a man-made one could be what's happening in the Middle East. If things explode in the Middle East, and you see oil prices, which are now, by the way, in bear territory, they're down more than 20% from their high this year. If you see those oil prices spike to around $100 a barrel, global economies, equity markets, they crash. This thing is being held up again. It's a drug. Nobody's ever, in the history of the world, part one and part two, nobody's ever heard of negative interest rates and quantitative easing.
you're saying that, and you think it holds together this year. That's a, I just had Wayne Jett on. He says, I think there'll be a reset. I don't see how we can get a reset. We won't get a reset before the end of the year. Smart guy, wrote a big fat book on the Fed and all that stuff. But you think whether it's this year or 2021, are you thinking we're going to get a reset at some point? We're going to get some big monster debt reset because they know this is never getting paid off, right? Is that right? Do you think in the next 2 years, sometime we get a debt reset?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know if we get a debt reset, but I know what they're going to do. They're going to keep lowering interest rates, and they're going to keep dumping more money into the system to prop it up. And again, you look, you see the data coming out. You have what? The millennials, they got a grand total of what? About $8,000 in savings. They can't buy houses. They can't buy cars. They got $1.5 trillion in college debt. You know, this thing is, the whole thing is a fraud.
Yeah.
And so the fraudsters are going to do what they can. And I believe that they're going to, again, lower interest rates. I'm going to say they're going to lower interest rates before the election at least 6 to 7 times.
You're talking quarter points.
Yep. And they may go one where they knock off a half, 50 basis points. And by the way, my feeling is they should have done it already. And again, I'm not saying right or wrong, good or bad. I'm saying if they want to prop the economy up. You saw it in the job numbers that came out. What, 75,000 jobs created? And then they lowered the last 2 months as well by another, what, 70,000? Less jobs? And what is the amount of people in the workforce? It's down to what, 1960s levels?
Labor force
participation rate?
Yeah.
It was about 62.1%.
Yeah.
It used to be in the 80s. It was like 67, 68%.
Yeah, a lot of people are cashing out and getting their Social Security as soon as they can take it because that's the best thing that can happen for them. And I don't see how that's such a great thing if the whole country ends up being broke, right?
It's going to be worse than that because, we write a lot about this in the Trends Journal. I'm of the baby boom generation. I'm the first ones out, 1946. And we are deaf, blind, and out of their mind. They're going to be broke. They're going to have all kinds of health problems. Obesity rates among the boomers are almost nearing like 45%. 70% of them are overweight. They don't have much savings left. It's not like, the old days when you had manufacturing jobs and you had pensions and benefits. Those days are gone. They can't get jobs as they lose their old jobs. We're going to have a crisis with the baby boomers that this country is not going to be able to afford to take care of. They're going to be inmates in nursing homes, and there's not going to be enough places to provide the help and care that they need. No, we're going through very dreadful situations here. And again, we're putting our money in places that aren't really building the economy. People say, I like Trump, I dislike Trump. You know me long enough. I don't care who the person is. I look at the issues. The one issue I'm totally in favor of Trump on is renegotiating these trade deals. And to me, it's no big deal. It doesn't take a genius to figure it out. Bring it back to what it used to be before they sold us out. Here's a story in yesterday's...
I like that. That's very simple. Bring it back to what it used to be before they sold us out.
Here, this is from the toilet paper of record. They call themselves the paper record, the New York Times. But when you read the garbage they put in, it's only good for toilet paper and for one use because all they're putting out is crap. But they write a story here, and just to show you how they slant it. Tariff threat has retailers worrying of disaster. Ooh, the retailers are worrying. You know who's worrying? Oh, the multi-billionaires, the Walmart people. Oh, they're worried. Oh, the Costco people are worried. The Home Depot people are worried. All the people out there that, again, baby boomers and people old enough to remember, once upon a time, boys and girls, Walmart didn't control your neighborhood and your whole area. There were mom and pop shops. There were a thing called hardware stores. Now they hardly exist. Oh, stationery stores. Yeah, we used to have Riley's right down the street here in Kingston. Oh no, now we have Staples. So what I'm saying is, listen to what they say. Even the healthy chains like Walmart and Costco, the new duties threaten the business formula that helped speed their rapid rise over the last few decades. Import cheap products from Asia and sell them at rock bottom prices. Like they're making that a great thing. You don't have to get your shoes made here. You don't need to get your clothes made here. When I was a kid growing up in the city, they used to down 7th Avenue in New York. You see the garment racks going all around the place. They used to have places where they'd make shoes, shirts, everything. Oh, they even used to make a thing called TV sets right up here in New York and upstate. Oh, they used to make washing machines. But here's the toilet paper of record, how they talk about it. Import cheap products from Asia and sell them at rock bottom prices. The National Retail Federation estimates that China supplies 42% of all apparel, 73% of all household appliances, and 86% of toys sold in the United States. Isn't that great? When I was a kid, you know what used to happen? When we got toys from Japan, because of course Japan's destroyed after World War II, and they're bringing in Japanese toys, they were always the crappiest ones. You didn't want a Japanese toy. But anyway, going on, we shouldn't make our own washing machines. No, we should import them at cheaper prices and have all us people work at Costco and Amazon and other multinational plantations in Slavelandia. And this way you could work in Amazon and you make $62.50 a week take-home pay after you pay your taxes, after you pay your rent because you can't afford a house, after you pay your health care, after you pay everything else, and you got a hernia from listening to this crap. So what I'm saying is, all they've done is turned us into plantation workers on the multinational plantations, because they used to have a thing called antitrust acts during the time of the Gilded Age. So people were able to own their own shops. So if I'm going to go out and I want to open up a store and I want to sell glasses and different kinds of housewares, they would charge me the same as the big person. Price wasn't dictated on how many items you bought. Everybody got the same price. But then they deregulated one after another. So now the bigs own everything. They criticize us for wanting manufacturing jobs that pay living wages, and I remember when this happened. Back in 1992, Bill Clinton, when he got elected, 94, everybody remembers Ross Perot with Al Gore.
And
another
the giant
boy
sucking sound.
Right. Al Gore, another boy born on third base and thought he had a home run. An arrogant nobody if Daddy wasn't Senator Gore. Just like we got this guy over here, Andy Cuomo. Arrogant Andy. Yeah, Daddy was the governor before you. You'd be nowhere. Oh, like that other guy, his brother, little Chrissy Cuomo, an arrogant little boy again. Hey, how about Anderson Cooper's mother died yesterday, Gloria Vanderbilt. Vanderbilt? You think Anderson would be anywhere if mommy wasn't a Vanderbilt? The whole game is rigged, and we're not in it. End of story. They've turned this country into Slavelandia. They want more cheap money so they could keep buying back stocks and artificially prop up the markets. And you're seeing the markets moving up on the hope of more cheap dough when the Fed comes out and says what they're going to do after they release the minutes of their meeting.
Let's talk about the New York Times with the story they're talking about their espionage story that the United States is attacking Russia's power grid, and the New York Times, with another anonymous source, puts that out there and makes out like the president is powerless to do anything. They don't have to tell him. I was watching CNN talk about this. They don't have to tell him Wow, they don't have Congress passed a law. It's okay. Really? So I guess Trump can write an executive order usurping the powers of Congress. Isn't there something called separation of powers in the Constitution? They wrote a law and said that the military doesn't have to tell Donald Trump anything. Really?
I know.
Anyway, he calls it treason. I mean, he come out and said that this is fake news. The New York Times is treason. If it was true, and I don't know, of course they have anonymous sources. Who knows what it is? I don't believe anything the New York Times says. Basically, if it was true, it'd be treason. They leaked a very confidential, classified program, which I'm not sure it is true. According to the president, it's not.
Again, I don't know what to believe anymore. There are no reporters left. I call them prostitutes. They get paid to put out by their corporate johns and their Washington whoremasters, and it's every country. Look what happened with that incident that happened in Russia, where they arrested that guy, threw him in jail. And there was demonstrations. And Putin said, who's responsible for this? They took the guy out of jail. But they made a big issue about that. How about in the United States? What's that guy, Chelsea Manning, or the woman Chelsea Manning, is in jail?
Bradley.
Yeah. How about Assange? How about coming out and saying, what's going on with this? No, but we'll go after Russia. Let's hate Russia while we're doing worse than what they are. At least they let that guy out of jail.
Yeah.
But where are the so-called media, the fourth estate, coming out protesting what's going on with Assange and Manning?
They're going to have a fight. I think Manning's out. They're going to have a fight over extradition. They say it might take a year long. I mean, Assange may end up Mohammed Morsi in Egypt died in court mysteriously.
Yep.
I mean, that's kind of weird. I don't know what happened, but that's a weird place to die, in court.
I saw that. Yeah.
Yes. But we have this other. How I asked you to come on was, your famous quote, which is, "When all else fails, they take you to war." Well, things aren't looking good. I mean, the economy, by any metric, is slowing down. At least everywhere, in America too. It's at least slowing down, and in some places, it's doing worse than that. The Iran thing, the Pentagon says they have new video out that they say that the Iran, attacked these oil tankers, which I think is kind of bizarre that they attacked Japanese interests while the Abe is in Tehran. But who knows? I don't know. And all else fails, they take you to war. They're getting ready. Supposedly, the Jerusalem Post is reporting that they're going to make the White House, which again, anonymous sources, they're going to have some sort of strike on Iran. I mean, what's your make about what's going on in the Middle East?
We've been writing about this since 2018, and one of our top trends of the year was, 2017. Market shock mass murder, and where it's about going after Iran. If somebody was to attack that ship, it would have been not I agree with you. I mean, here they have the Prime Minister of Japan meeting with Khamenei in Iran, and they're going to blow up the ship while he's there. Doesn't make any sense. And of course, they're saying that it was not a mine. They said that they saw flying objects coming into the ship. So going back to it, who has the most to lose in the Middle East? To me, Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia needs their oil at $100 a barrel for their economy to break even. They've
said that before publicly.
Right. And they're floating bonds. They're in trouble. And then they launched that war, the Yemen war in 2015, that's still going on. That's costing them a lot of money. And now the Houthis are rebelling. They're fighting, they're attacking back and hitting some airports and other strategic areas in Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia, more than anybody, I believe, needs the price of oil to go up. And they would like to see that happen. Now, you mentioned, and we both agree on this, that there's a global slowdown. Is that correct?
Oh, pretty clear.
Okay. That's why oil prices are in bear territory. Even with the escalation of potential war in the Middle East, we're still looking at Brent crude hovering around $60 a barrel. It was around 75 at its high this year. Now, Why is it so low? More supply than demand. You're looking at slowdowns everywhere. And this is despite taking 1.2 million barrels of oil off the markets from OPEC and Russia and others that have agreed to do it. Even with that happening, they're still unable to raise the price of oil. So I believe there are interests out there. And again, a couple of weeks ago, 4 ships were, quote, sabotaged in the Persian Gulf off the coast of the United Arab Emirates. So all of a sudden this is happening. To me, it's not in the best interests of Iran. Oh, and by the way, in talking about oil, Venezuela's hardly pumping any stuff out. Iran's way down in pumping what they're pumping out. Libya, thanks to the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize winner Barack Obama, I don't like that guy Gaddafi, he has to go. The country's totally destroyed. They're hardly producing any oil. So now with all this cutback in production, and now even cutting rigs in the United States, they're still unable to raise the price of oil. That tells you where the global economy is going. It's going down, and to me, the United Arab Emirates, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, they all want oil prices to go back up, and they will do what they want to make it happen. So I don't believe Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction and ties to Al-Qaeda. The Gulf of Tonkin incident never happened. Why would I believe what, quote, the intelligence are telling us when I heard Pompeo, and anybody could go to YouTube and look it up, saying how he's bragging when he was the head of the CIA, we lie, we cheat, and we steal, and they even have classes to teach us how to do it. So I'm going to believe him?
Yeah. You think the prospects for, I mean, even China is warning on this lot because they don't want to China does not want high oil prices.
No.
They're a net importer of oil, so they don't want it. So you have, maybe Russia, but, I don't know. I mean, it's just a bizarre world. We got factions inside of factions inside of factions. I mean, we have factions inside the United States. I remember Paul Craig Roberts brought that up. I said, how can so-and-so do... Well, do you have people inside the government that are against each other? Well, obviously, that was before the whole thing, Spygate and all that, and the CIA and them going after 702s and spies abroad. He said, oh, yeah, there are factions inside fighting each other. I was like, really? And he was right.
He's a brilliant guy.
Oh, yeah, brilliant.
Yeah, and matter of fact, he was up here when we launched Occupy Peace. And, he was Reagan's assistant treasury secretary.
Right.
He was on the inside. So he knows what's going on over there, and he's 100% correct. And I've been on the inside, too. I know what it looks like. There are factions within factions. And again,
which is kind of scary because you don't know who you're dealing with. Is this person going to do the right thing? Is this person going to upset her? You don't know who you're dealing with. I mean, you don't. You got people leaking to the New York Times about, if that really did happen, that we were going after Russia's power grid, which I don't think we should, it'd be a huge act of war, shut down their entire country. If that did happen, they certainly shouldn't leak that out to the New York Times and an anonymous source.
No, of course not. And again, look at the bias of the paper. Well, they have a blackout over there, electricity. Some 50 million people in Argentina and Uruguay have lost their power. Remember when it happened and it's out of the news. But remember when it happened with Venezuela? Then, look at that terrible government. Look at how the people are suffering. But now it's out of the news. So what I'm saying is it's okay when it happens in Argentina. And they're doing great in Argentina. That guy Macri over there, he was going to be a genius. He's an economic guy. Oh, they only have a 55% inflation rate. Yeah, their peso's down over 50%. Their unemployment, depending on whose numbers you look at, is in the 20 percentile range in different areas. And so, yeah, they have real economic problems. And now we're hearing from the president of Colombia, whose popularity rating is around 20%. He's saying it's a moral authority. Their moral authority to do something about what's going on in Venezuela. So again, we've been writing about this for months, years, about how there's going to be a triangle, Argentina, Brazil, Colombia, backed by the United States to go after Venezuela. And do you think the United States would care about Venezuela if, as I say, if their major export was broccoli? Or we would have cared about Libya or Iraq? Look what's going on in Sudan. They just killed over, what, 118 people over a week ago. Who cares? They're only Sudanese. They don't have any oil. It's all down in South Sudan. Look what's going on in Algeria. Who cares? Nobody cares. They have protests there every week, every day for a while. But so it's all about, and we heard Bolton, our national security advisor, his words, wrote it in the Trends Journal, to the effect that we need American oil companies in Venezuela, and it would be good for the American people. He said it.
Do you think if we get a war, do you think the economy, I mean, you're thinking the economy will hold up. I mean, so you're not forecasting a big war this year or next year, at least until after the election. Is that,
I don't know. I don't know.
if we get a war, does it blow up? Does it everything come tumbling down?
Yes. War breaks out, the economy, it's over. It's over. It's not like the old days where you need a war to build, it's like not like the Great Depression and you start World War II and the economy builds it. This is a different scene. This is way different. And you mentioned countries that need oil. How about India? They import 80% of their energy. The rupee keeps going down. Their former central bankster came out, wrote a book, and saying how they're inflating the GDP numbers. The economy's growing about half of what they're saying it's growing, or even less.
No.
So yes, if a war breaks out, I don't know if they're going to go to war, but I do know that, people call them war hawks. They're not hawks. Hawks have never done anything to anybody. These are psychopaths, sociopaths. These are crazy people. Everybody bowed to this guy, the prince over there of Saudi Arabia. You know how he became a prince? A frog kissed the princess, and the princess then he became a prince. What prince? It's a mafia. It's a gang that they created in the 1930s. The country's doing terrible over there. The whole Middle East is doing terrible. Look at the problems they have in Turkey. Look at their economy. Look at the Turkish lira. One currency after another going down. Look what's going on in the emerging markets. They're soaking money out like crazy. Oh, look in America. Look at the money flowing into junk bonds because they can't make money anywhere else. Junk bonds, collateralized loan obligations. This is serious, very serious. And again, here, take a trip to England. They just got rid of May. Now they're talking about Boris Johnson. I mean, come on, look at the freak show. You got Macron, the little garçon over there in France. You got one freak after another.
I had somebody write me and said, Greg, would you please tell me what the little guy can do? And, it's just going to be bad for the little guy. I mean, you should cut your cable bill, cut your expenses, cut everything, cut, and try to put yourself in the best position possible. There's no painless way to do it. What would you tell little guys to do? What would you tell people?
I would tell them, stop ordering food out and cook for yourself. Start buying the best quality you can and get in the best shape you can, physically, emotionally, and spiritually. And I don't mean religiously, I mean into yourself. I always get a kick out of, this guy or this woman did this when they were 1986, or this, they did. The crap that I pulled when I was a younger guy. Stupid things that I've done that I'm not really proud of. You try to grow and improve yourself. That's why at one time, back in the day, they used to respect the elders because you learn from experience if you keep learning. So that's what I would do. Keep learning. Improve your health the best way you can. This nation is totally out of shape. One of our top trends for 2019, ready to explode. Look at the shape people are in. I'm 15 minutes from Woodstock over here. I was just up at the Woodstock Playhouse a couple of weeks ago. And I'm looking at the photos from 1969 Woodstock. Everybody's thin. People are in shape. You know the expression they say that pigs can't fly? You been to the airport lately?
Yeah.
Look what's going on. So when people ask, no, stop this stuff about buying all these prepared foods. Stop eating junk food. Watch the pennies that you spend. You don't need a new car. I have a 1994 Audi Cabriolet. I hate these new cars with all this electronic crap in it. And by the way, when you get in these new cars, they all light up on the inside. Duh. The darker it is inside your car, the better you can see out. Duh. But we're going to put a lot of technology in it and get off your... I don't carry a cell phone. You know why they call them handhelds? Because everybody's masturbating in public. You know, so get off this thing and get back into your life. You know, critical care nurses say that the greatest sadness of dying people is that they never became who they wanted to be and took jobs and did things for other reasons. And I have a definition of hell, and that's taking that last breath and knowing you're not the person you said you were or could have been. So the people that are going through tough times, you know, try to get more of the family unit together. That's something that hardly exists anymore. You know, try to help each other out in positive ways. And again, you have to be in shape physically, emotionally, and spiritually as the best you can. So that's the only advice I can give. And again, don't go into debt and buying things that you don't need.
And you're still, it looks like you said that you were pretty positive about gold and silver. And listen, I don't, people think, oh, you sell gold. I don't sell anything, but I look around all the assets to invest in: farmland, artwork, physical stuff. And then you have to look at gold and silver, which is really suppressed. I mean, gold, even at 13, I don't know, 40, 50, whatever it is, silver definitely suppressed under $15. But do you still like gold and silver if you can afford it, especially silver? I mean, do you like those metals for what's coming?
I don't give financial advice, of course. I want to make that clear. I'm a trend forecaster. We sent out a trend alert 3 weeks ago, the gold bull run. I've been negative on gold in the sense that I said it's not going to break out. It's locked into this trading range for 6 years. For 6 years, I've been saying gold has to break past $14.50 an ounce to break through to the 2,000 mark. And then I've been saying to get there, gold has to break toward 1385. When gold breaks beyond 1,385, it has the shot of breaking through the 1450 mark. Let's go back to what we were talking about earlier. All the governments are printing cheap money. Digital money not worth the paper it's not printed on. That's why gold is now rebounding from its recent low of around 1270. So I believe that the bottom for gold is only about $70, $80 from where it is. And in the futures markets, that's not a lot. Like you said, gold and silver, look where they are compared where they were back in 2011 when gold was getting near that, 2,000 range and silver was in over $40, right?
Yeah, almost 50.
Almost 50. So now it's down to 15. So what I'm saying, you're near the bottom. And I'm more bullish on gold and silver because silver is also used in production. So if the economies slow down, which they are, you use less silver, but silver follows gold. So I believe that the gold bull run is ready to begin its next run. And the last time I forecast a gold bull run in the Trends Journal was in 2005. And it spiked after that. So this is the only other time I've said that.
Wow, that was a good call. You said it would go up in 2005, and you had from 5 to 11. And of course, they suppress everything.
Of course,
we don't have any real markets. But I think they'll lose control. Actually, I don't think they'll lose control. I think the really wealthy people and the central banks will just say, "We'll come to the same conclusion that little me, who drives a Chevy, will say, wow, let's see it. Look at all the asset classes. I got to have some of that." I think that's what's going to happen. And I think it's what's happening if you listen to people like Rob Kirby. The bar market is unbelievably tight. The coin market, you can still go to your store and buy, 100 ounces of, 100 gold eagles or 100 silver eagles or 5 silver eagles, whatever you want. But the bar market is super tight for wealthy people with tonnage.
And the other thing too is that you're hearing major people now coming out in the media, in the mainstream business media, being positive on gold. And
Which
then you're
means they already bought it.
exactly
Yeah.
when they're playing the futures markets. And the other one is that they're also, you're getting from Morgan Stanley and others, you're getting very negative reports, as you well know, on the future of the economy. Again, many people are thinking we'll go into a recession, and I'm holding back on that because I say they're going to artificially prop it up. They're going to do everything they can to keep it going up during the presidential reality show.
That's a big call. I'm having a hard time arguing with that call, actually. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. Somebody could zig and somebody could zag, or we could sink some, ship somewhere in the Persian Gulf, and who knows? I mean, we live in a crazy world. But anyway, Gerald Celente, you are the man that sees tomorrow and the next day and the next day. The publisher of the Trends Journal. You tell me, I've said this before, but it hasn't been all that long. I think it's been less than a year. You went from a quarterly to a monthly, and the subscription rate stayed the same. Is that right? Tell me about that.
Well, we went from a quarterly to a monthly. We only increased the subscription rate by $20, $29, but it's only $129 a year. And we have podcasts, by the way, Trend Vision 2020 podcast, Trends in the News broadcasts, and Trend Alerts each week. It's the only magazine in the world where you'll read history before it happens. And I want to thank you for all that you do and the people that you put on to bring out the information that could help people prepare for the future as well. And, you summed it up at the end. There are wild cards out there that nobody could predict. So when I talk about gold and I talk about silver, to me, you want that safe haven asset because, to me, right now, it's a time to start preparing for the worst. And if the worst doesn't happen and you're prepared for it, you've lost nothing. If you don't prepare and the worst has happened, you can lose everything.
One last thing. I was trying to sign off, but I just want to think. I mean, everybody's going to say you should ask about. I mean, you have a Joe Biden who has a hard time. This is pictures, so you can trust the reporting. He can't put 200 people in the room. Although they compress it, and they never show that there's nobody in there. I mean, this is how they do it, the mainstream media, to make it look bigger than what it is. But you have Donald Trump, who's got people getting ready for his campaign kickoff, I believe, in Florida, and they're camping out for 40 hours. There's going to be tens of thousands of people there. And yet Joe Biden is winning in the polls. He's beating Trump in the polls in several key states. Your trend for Trump and Biden or whoever the Democrat challenger is?
What Trump has to win are the swing states. And Biden is a threat in the swing states, particularly Pennsylvania. And of course, it's very early in the race. Once Biden starts talking, people see how stupid he is. That's why he always falls way back in the polls after the election really starts getting underway. But that's Trump's greatest threat. And we don't see anybody else coming forward. We thought Beto O'Rourke in the beginning, but well, I don't know anything about anything, but I'll wave my hands and jump up on the bar and talk to you, So people found out how empty he really is. But here's what it depends on. It depends on how many millennials and Generation Z go out to vote. And they're not in the Trump camp. But they're not that solidly behind even Bernie Sanders compared to Biden. The millennials only favor Bernie Sanders by about 2 percentage points over Biden. So right now, it looks like Biden is the guy that is going to be the issue with Trump, but it's going to come down to the economy. And again, that famous phrase from the Clinton 92 campaign, it's the economy, stupid. And that's what this is going to depend on. If people have money in their pockets and they have jobs, they're not going to take the risk of bringing in a Biden when things didn't go very well. We only saw 2% average GDP growth during the Obama years. So that's what it's really going to depend on. And right now it's too early to call it, but that's the way we see it.
Okay. Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal, now monthly. I'll put the links up after the interview section. Wow, always very interesting. Always very enlightening. And thank you for coming on and giving us your appraisal of what's going on right now. Hope you come back, in the next few months. Okay.
Oh, I love being on it. Thanks
Okay.
again for all that you do.
All right. Thanks for coming on, Gerald Celente, publisher of the Trends Journal. All the links will be in the after the interview section. Gerald Celente, thanks for joining us today on USAWatchdog.com.